Right, now we're going to move on from that debate to another debate that happened over the weekend to do with the Finance Minister and the Shadow Finance Minister talking finance. Q&A spent a whole show talking finance. Some illuminating conversations came from it. And let's just get into it. I've got several clips here. I may not play them all, but let's just get into the debate between Nicola Willis and Grant Robertson. They started the conversation about when unknown costs hit a government. What do you do when unknown costs hit a government? That wasn't necessarily the question, but that's the theme of what they're talking about. You know, like, for example, I don't know, COVID, or the worst natural disaster the country's ever seen with cyclones in Auckland. How does a government get held accountable for their spending and their budget the year before when unknown things happen? That's kind of the theme of the first part of this conversation.
As I've said to you,
which ones?
The ones at the beginning in 2018, and then in 2021 or 22, we were under what we said we would be. But Jack, the point is, those allowances are a means to an end. You have to respond to the things that are in front of you. If there's a cyclone, you have to respond to that. That's what we did. Also, when you look at the end result, we ended up with debt significantly under where it was forecast to be at the budget policy statement. We ended up with unemployment under where it was meant to be at the budget policy statement. What we've done is take a balanced approach. Now, it's all very well to say, no, we've set that allowance, we're going to stick to it no matter what. Does that mean we don't pay teachers? Does that mean we don't pay nurses? Because they are the decisions you actually have to make. It's not a theoretical exercise governing.
It echoes that conversation we had last week about how the opposition is kind of like the step parent, you know, that they can say, why would you do this? And when you're the parent that has to look after the household budget and you have to go, actually, the car broke down this week, so no, we're not going away this weekend for the school holidays, we can't. The step parent just goes, let's go away anyway, to try and win the love of the children. The opposition party can just say, you overspent, you said you're going to spend this and you spent more, and Grant Robertson has to play grown up and go, yeah, there was this thing called a cyclone, and if we had to stick to our budgets, nurses and teachers wouldn't have been paid. Is that where you want to go? They have to play it like it's an actuality rather than a theoretical game played by the opposition.
Actually have to govern for the circumstances that are there. And when you look at hang on a second, just let me finish this. When you look across the board at what the government's done, at the indicators across the economy, we have done well compared to the rest of the world. Doesn't stop it being hard for individuals and households.
Correct.
But we have spent in a careful and balanced way to support New Zealanders whilst also keeping indicators like debt lower than most other countries in the world.
So let's talk about 2022, because you can't blame COVID for 2022.
No one pushed back on this. You can't blame COVID for 2022. 2022 was 12 months ago. That means it was the end of 2021. We were still having restrictions and 7-day isolations, and no one pushed back on this. And I thought about it when I heard her say it, and I went, hang on. In my head, I kind of went, oh yeah, that's this year, but that was last year. Surely we can put some restrictions or attribute some of the expenses to COVID in 2022, considering 2022 technically starts one day after 2021, which was the thick of it. I'm not saying it's the only answer, but to say you can't blame it, surely. A small part of it at least, if nothing else.
That year was the year our inflation rate hit 7.6%. It was also the year you decided to go on the biggest budget spend up in New Zealand's history. You added $38 billion over the 4-year period to the economy, including a $6 billion operating allowance. You completely blew it out. And let's look at what was in that budget. There was money for Three Waters, Te Pūkenga reform, Te Whātau Ora reform. There was money to renovate our IRD
Health
offices
reforms aren't important.
in the middle of an inflation.
This is where we play the fair card. I mean, what she's saying on a basic level is fair. Should that, let's use the same analogy, your car's just broken down, so you have to spend money on it. Do you still go on that holiday? Well, maybe you just put it off by 12 months. It's fair what she's saying, at least on a top line situation, unless it's affordable, which is where Grant gets back to as well.
Water system's
if you
not
let me
important.
finish, because I let you finish, in the middle of an inflation crisis, you decided to do the biggest spending budget in New Zealand history. And then what did we see happen? Inflation persisted, interest rates went higher, and your cost of living payment that you did, when actually what you should have been doing
which
was
had nothing to
reducing
do
tax,
with your spending.
that went to French backpackers.
It
was the wrong response to an inflationary crisis.
That kind of response is typical of the way Nicola does this. About 1.5%, so 98.5% of the cost of living payment went to New Zealanders living here earning less than $70,000. But if I come back to the beginning of what Nicola said, as a country, we've had to face a number of hurdles. At the same time, we do want our health system to be better. We do want our three waters to be better. We do want.
But Grant, it's not. People are waiting longer for surgery.
No.
They're waiting longer in the
Those
emergency
investments
room.
needed
People
to
are
be
waiting
made.
longer for a
But
doctor.
Don't
tell us the health system's
here's the
better.
last point. On your show, Jack, Christopher Luxon, when he was asked at that 2022 budget, would he be spending the same amount of money as Labor? He said yes.
No, he said he would reduce tax
which is
grants,
effectively the
right
same thing. Which is effectively the same thing.
Can we just
And we all remember that clip. That was the one where Jack Tame actually got him to admit it would be as inflationary as their spending. So there you go, Chewy. It's a pretty good. I think that's a pretty good bit of a balance there. We've got the Minister of Finance saying, there's unexpected costs. We're very good compared to the rest of the world. We came underneath the projected negative outcomes, even though there was negative outcomes. And we've got Nicola Willis saying, but you spent too much in 2022. Maybe both things can be true.
Yeah, look, I there was one that I was waiting for, right? Because whether you agree or disagree with what Labor have done financially since COVID, you can't say that Robertson doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Right? And as we've seen in the past week, Nicola is very much just about vibes. There's bad vibes. Grant Robertson's fault. Like we've dealt with a generational pandemic, and the absolute unwillingness to accept that inflation is a global problem.
Yeah.
It's certainly a problem for a country that is isolated and revolves around import and export to the degree that we do. I would like to see some intellectual honesty. Like, you can criticize a bunch of things.
What does that word mean?
I know, right? But you can still criticize certain aspects of what Labor have done and the decisions that they've made and that sort of thing. But you cannot ignore the reasons why they did them. And then you look at everything that's involved in where we are at the moment. And I do believe in the fullness of time, if Labor are able to continue what they're doing, things are on the upswing. You look at other countries and you go, cool, so you sacrificed a big portion of your population for the fucking economy, and you're a couple of percentage points away from where we are anyway. That sounds to me like we made the right choice.
Well, here's a comment from Doom. Even my cooker boss knows National would have ruined the manufacturing industry if they were in during COVID. And look, when we're saying, a few comments in the chat have said, stop saying since COVID it's still here. I guess we're talking about the governmental setup around COVID, like payments and money they were putting into COVID, not since the virus was here, obviously, which is still here. But Chewy, you talked about if we were with National now. Next part of this conversation, which we'll get back to now, this is called a segue, is them talking about, because there's been promises made by the Labor government about when we'll get back into surplus. And of course, according to National, Labor all bad. So that would mean National would get back into surplus sooner. Because if Labor's doing
this is a trap
all wrong, then surely National do better, money quicker.
A question for you then, because National still hasn't
released a fiscal plan. Neither has Labor, Jack.
And the whataboutism always lose the argument. Yeah, but neither have they. What she's saying is, yes, we have not done it. She left that part of the sentence out, and then she says, but neither have they. But she just left out that's correct, we have not put that out, right? The only response, that's the silent, it's like a silent P in pneumonia. There's a silent, yes, you're correct, Jack, we haven't put that out at the start of that sentence. And then she says, but neither have they.
Voting overseas begins.
No.
Well, at least we've got a preview.
But what they have done is they have added hundreds of millions of dollars of campaign promises on top of that pre-food.
So
we're going to talk about those promises.
Every dollar is costed within the allowances, Nicola. In 2017, when I was in your position, I brought out a fiscal plan. Then we had the pre-food. Then we updated it.
Nicola, will National...
Did you hear the response for a second time? But where is yours now? We don't have to if you don't. Show me yours, I'll show you mine.
return to surplus faster than Labor?
Well, it is a very, very difficult set of books that Grant Robertson has delivered us. And I make this prediction.
Okay, so
the
no, give us an answer, please.
Squirrel.
But let me finish the answer, because
So
this is
how
very
will you
important.
do that?
If I can
Hang on,
finish
hang on.
my answer,
We need
you
an
will
answer.
You
learn some
interrupted me in the
information.
last
There's going to
Shut up,
be,
Grant.
there'll be plenty of time to
So
interrupt.
here's the thing. We will certainly deliver a surplus earlier than Labor would have, but Labor are pretending
What
they're
would
going
you
to...
cut?
No, let
Sorry,
me finish.
now,
But
Grant,
what
Labor
would you
are...
cut to
We're going to
do
get to
that?
If I
We're going
can't
to get to
finish
that.
my answer, you're not
You
going to...
interrupted me in my last
We're going to
one.
get to that, yeah.
But Labor are expecting you to believe that they will deliver a surplus in 2027. That's based on Grant, for the first time in his entire time as a finance minister, sticking to his operating allowances. He's not going to do that. He's already delayed surplus 3 times.
Okay,
He's
so I'm
not
talking
gonna
about
hit
your
surplus
plans.
in 2027.
Will National commit to returning to surplus before 2027?
I'm not making that commitment today. What I'm making a commitment
will you
of is
commit-
we will hit surplus earlier than Labor will, because we will stick
there's
Oh,
a
to
fuck
our
no,
spending
Jack.
discipline.
Just no,
because
we-
you're not going to hit it in
Okay,
2027.
Nicola, can you please
I
be clear
don't
with us?
believe it,
I
Grant.
see.
I
All right.
do not believe it, and
Okay.
no New Zealander should, because you have never spent
You
the
know,
amount
so-
you
so
say you
will a national
Treasury
government-
warned you
No,
in your
Nicola.
own documents that you spend more
so
than
you
you say you will.
you say you're going to hit a surplus before us. That means you will have to cut even
No, I'm not
deeper
saying that
into
we are gonna
public
cut-
services
No.
than you have already
No,
said you're going
I'm saying
to. Yes,
I'm
it
gonna
does.
stick-
There's no other way. Or what else are you going to do?
Okay. Can I just say, on behalf of the viewer, it's great that we're having a robust conversation, but we actually need to be able to make sure we can distinguish your comments over each other. Nicola, be totally clear here.
Yeah.
Will National commit to returning to surplus in the year 2027?
Yes, but
Thank
not earlier than that.
So that was
Wow.
it's I don't know, it's one of those things. If you're being fair, you might say I don't like it when they try and nail people down, but I do like it when they call people. So if you're saying these guys aren't doing it, we'll do it better, you should be able to at least better what they're saying. What she's actually saying is we will get to surplus before them, but they wouldn't get to surplus if they had the chance by 2027. That's what she's saying. And I guess that becomes whether it's believable or not. And we can't really make that call, Chewy.
Look, I can make a call. Nicola Willis is finance minister is Ruth Richardson 2.0. It's going to be fucking devastating.
Cash registers at A&E departments.
I still think that Ruth Richardson has left psychic damage to this country that we apparently we've forgotten. But that was just an embarrassing display. Embarrassing. And look, I'm going to call this in the chat. Ian, that's a bad Ian. I'm going to come around to your house. I'm going to squirt you with a hose. You knock that shit off.
But hang on.
I know where you live, Pat, for a start.
There's a little part of me. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? Let's not get into that conversation because, of course, you had to expect the conversation to come up around modelling their tax cuts. And this has already been a meme that's going around with Jack Tame saying, is that it? That comes from this part of the conversation. Are they going to finally show us the backroom data? Maybe they've got rid of all their backroom people. Maybe that's the reason. The back end stuff to how they're going to model these tax cuts.
We're at the point, though, where I think there's more than credibility on the line with this. It's actually integrity on the line with this. Does detailed revenue modelling beyond the tax plan that you have released actually exist?
Thank
She
you for
just
asking
pull out
this
a whole
question,
ass
because this is
binder?
very important. There has been misinformation about this. Here is the table of costings for our tax plan, which sets out every element of our tax plan and its cost on an annual basis. Here is the review.
Now, just so we're clear, what we want to see is the stuff behind the single line. Like, how did you get to that table? Where is the workings for that table? That's what's being asked for, not the table, the workings as to how you got to that table. That's actually what people want to see.
Of our tax plan done by external expert economists who agree that the costings we have put together are credible and fair. Here is the legal advice we released underpinning our costings.
One aspect
Here
of
is
it.
a summary of the methodology we used
The methodology.
to cost our foreign buyers policy. Now, by contrast, I want you to look at this. This
It's
is
the
the
sound
costing
of the paper.
for Labour's
me.
GST policy. And nowhere on this, by the way, does it model an increase in
Yes,
fruit
it
and
does.
vegetables
So
being
actually
eaten.
that's already built in, so
And
that's
nowhere on this
misinformation.
is there an economist who says, as your ads claim, that the full GST reduction will be passed on to consumers.
Nicola?
Not an economist has said
Nicola,
that.
we'll talk about Labour's plans in just a moment. Will you release the numbers behind the modelling? That's the question.
Here
I mean,
on this
you
piece
haven't.
of paper are the numbers
Look,
behind the
one line.
modelling. We are modelling 16 to 1,700
One line.
It's
foreign
not
homes
modelling.
selling to foreign buyers
Wait.
at an average
Wait.
price of 2.9 million with a 15% tax, which will generate around 715
Do you have
million
anything more than
in
that?
year one. Yes, I do. I have a full methodology
but
which I've detailed here.
Is that's it?
This is what I have explained to you. Of course, there are
Okay,
spreadsheets.
okay.
But
Okay.
Grant's not
Holy
releasing
shit.
spreadsheets.
So we'll talk about Grant in a moment.
One line.
I don't like the resignation questions. I know they come up, but given you have already pledged to resign if you don't deliver tax cuts, and given ACT has now pledged to peg back their tax cuts, and New Zealand First has indicated it doesn't support them, do you stand by that pledge?
I stand by my pledge. The next national government will deliver tax reduction to working people that they are owed and that they are due.
And
not for
will you
working
give the
people.
same assurance if you fail to raise the revenue that you have projected?
We have put together a very
no,
conservative
sorry.
plan. No,
Well,
Jack,
that's the
it's very
question.
important because you've asked me questions about this and I've never been able to answer it in full, and it's important that I do.
Can you?
What
I've
this-
just asked you a really
but
clear
this is-
question, so can you please give me a really
I'm
clear
going to give
answer?
you a really
will you give
clear
the
answer.
same
If
assurance
you look at the
you
way
don't
we have put our
rebring in the
tax
revenue?
plan together, we have built in buffers. So we have taken conservative estimates for the costs of elements of our tax plan. We have also ensured that in
Looking
year
for an
one,
answer.
we generate more than $500 million more than is
Jeff, I have
needed
to
to
be able
deliver
to
tax
respond to
reduction.
this.
And then we have put this in
Yeah.
the context of a fiscal plan, which you will see shortly, which also builds
Shortly.
in buffers. So I am confident.
Which you'll see
It's
shortly.
just about
Early-
5 minutes
early-
to the election, isn't it?
Early voting starts on Monday. You'll probably see it the day after the election. I think that's 3 weeks will be considered shortly.
Confident that we have put this together in a way that means we will not need to borrow for tax cuts and we will not need to make
So-
reductions in any
Nicola,
frontline
that doesn't
services.
answer the question I just asked you, which is would you give the
it's
same
bullshit.
assurance if you don't get the revenue you have projected?
No, and can I tell you why? Because the revenue that we get depends on the economic growth conditions and therefore how much
Hang
tax
on.
people are paying across a range of things.
Hang on, because now she's saying it depends on the conditions, which is exactly the criticism of the Labour Party having to overspend, underspend, borrow more, depending on the situation and the position that the country is in. So now she's saying, I won't give a guarantee because we don't know if there is unforeseen things, but she's holding National to account for having to come up with more money or borrow more because of unforeseen things. It kind of feels a bit too like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. I don't know if you feel like that, but it kind of feels like that to me. And now, Grant, you go.
It feels to me like a creeping terror of this person might be finance minister. That's terrifying to me.
Grant
Because
Robertson.
this is not the chat of someone who knows the numbers. It's not even the chat of someone who's a good salesperson. Like this, she hasn't sold shit. She doesn't know the answers to it. It's all based on flim flam, and she can't back it up because there's nothing behind it. It's so obvious.
Grant Robertson has, I think, what is the best and most logical comeback to all this word salad.
It depends on the economic conditions that we're in. But I will be delivering tax reduction.
So, Jack, Nicola's tax plan relies on selling $20 billion of land, housing to offshore buyers.
That's it.
That is not credible. Most economists who have looked at the plan say it's not credible. All of this is just words, Jack.
No.
Hang on, Nicola. I let you
give
go
Grant
on
a
that.
chance, yeah.
All of this is just words. It's an inflationary policy. Even Cameron Bagri, who's Nicola's National's friend, says it's inflationary. It'll push up the price of housing, and it's simply not credible. They will have to, if Nicola's going to deliver on her commitments she's just made, they will have to make even deeper cuts into public services. This policy doesn't add up. It's not even clear who it applies to. Is it residents or is it tax residents? Which is it?
Our policy.
Which is it?
Our policy.
Answer that question.
Our policy applies to foreign buyers of homes who currently are banned from buying homes. Under our policy, they will pay a 50.
which John Key says when they tried to do it, you couldn't do legally. Remember that? John Key has already said you can't do what she said that they're going to do. So, of course, Grant says...
So a New Zealander who lives overseas for more than 325 days, how are you going to make that work?
They will be exempt.
How?
Because we have very clear advice that we can make that work within our existing tax and trade
I don't believe that that is true.
We have advice from the former Deputy Commissioner of the IRD who has worked in the practical world of tax.
Now, what that means is she said, someone told us. I mean, that's that answer. Someone told us. How? Because they asked for, again, the methodology as to how you're going to carve out those people. And she said, because we've had advice. Someone told us.
Someone told us we could, and then we asked someone else, and they reckoned it was pretty legal. So we're just going to fucking give it a go, eh? That's the Kiwi way. We're going to number 8 wire our way to surplus.
We're going to keep rolling because there's another little part of the conversation about tax that I want to play. It's only 60 seconds or so, but the conversation came up: are tax cuts inflationary? That's this part of the conversation.
Very quickly. You want to give, what, $16 billion in tax cuts? And I asked you a few weeks ago if your tax cut would be inflationary. You said it wouldn't be because Kiwis would choose not to spend it. Quote, I asked you, if New Zealanders all choose not to spend the money, then it won't be inflationary? That's the theory, right? You said yes.
So very important from that statement. She agreed that if everybody saved it, it wouldn't be inflationary because money wouldn't be going back into the economy, right? So that was what was said 2 or 3 weeks ago. We played that clip. So if everyone who got tax back saved it, it would not be inflationary. That was the agreement. She changes her tone now.
We've polled it. These are the results. So 44% of respondents said they would spend that tax cut on everyday essentials. 7% said they would spend it on something they wouldn't normally buy. So more than half say they will spend that tax cut. Does that make it inflationary?
I think you will recall that what I said is I think some people will save it, and that poll completely confirms my view.
That's not my question.
44% will save it. No, I do not think it'll be inflationary, and I'll tell you why. I brought this report with me too.
And this is what you call being hoisted by one's own petard. When you give evidence that you say says it's not inflationary, but the evidence says it's not as inflationary, and she actually reads it out to say how this means it's not inflationary. Listen closely.
Treasury advised, Grant, in 2022 that tax cuts are less inflationary than government spending.
So less inflationary. So still inflationary, but not as inflationary. This is her defence as to why tax cuts are not inflationary.
Is their advice to him. And the reason for that is because government spending creates more inflation because with tax reduction, some people will use it to pay down their mortgage, and believe you me,
they said less inflationary, right? Less inflationary, but they didn't say it's not inflationary.
They said that and recent work has found that government investment and consumption tends to have the largest effects on domestic demand and interest rate.
But they're not saying it's not.
Transfers and tax changes have less effect. Well, the alternative here, Jack, let's be really clear about the universe we're living in.
The alternative is reining in fiscal spending and not giving a tax.
That is not the alternative, because every dollar of this tax plan is
really
a dollar that Grant would otherwise spend on another huge government program that may or may not deliver the outcomes
over the next 4 years for Nicola's tax plan to work. $20 billion has to get pumped in to the economy from foreign buyers. That will definitely be
I think we've talked about it enough. We want to focus.
There you go. And that's a very good point as well. And I don't think that's a point that many people have made. You know, forget the tax cuts actually, you know, the more money that we've got going into the economy, rising inflation. What about the $5 billion a year for the next 4 years, which currently is not in our economy, that'll be driven into our economy if they get their way? How can that not be inflationary, Chewy?
I don't know. I've lost my fucking mind. I've gone crazy. I've disappeared through a black hole of doom. Okay, one thing I want to highlight here, right, is remember how career politician bad, right? Have I lost you, Pat?
Yeah, no, I'm actually talking to someone else.
Yep. All right, career politician bad, right? Yep. You want a doer, someone who knows what they're in, right? Nicola Willis has no background in finance at all. No degree, no qualification.
No.
And it's so important, right? Because the economy is, quote unquote, fucked. Everything's ruined. The world's disappearing. We're going to be buying soup with wheelbarrows full of loose cash any day now, according to these guys. And the person that they've sent in writing to save the day is someone with an English literature qualification and no background in finance, no background in the economy, no background in numbers. It's why? What is going on?
It's everything. It's the upside down. We're living in the upside down. You know,
Like,
but you know what? But you know what the response is going to be. The response from the right's going to be, well, you know, how's it any different from someone who used to work in a fish and chip shop being prime minister? So, you know, that's what the response is going to be. But I agree with you. It's like I mean, Grant Robertson. What was Grant Robertson before he was in politics? Can we say? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Has he been involved in finance his whole life? Is he going to be the same?
Well, that's fair enough.
Hang on, let me just say this. I don't even think necessarily it's about their background. It's about, are they competent today? And the numbers that they're putting out, even the $20 billion or the $5 billion a year, it's just not. It's not practical. It's not competent. It's not. You know, so there's big holes in them. Look, I mean, I just think that they need to. I respect that ACT has changed their policy after seeing Prefu. I don't understand why National won't. I wonder if some people are kind of going, oh, you know, maybe they're stretching themselves, but maybe that's why we'll go to ACT. I don't think people are jumping between National and Labor, but then again, ACT's dropping in the polls as well. Maybe that's why we're seeing New Zealand First grow in the polls, because people are, the shine's coming off that bold old head of his, and it's heading towards that wrinkly skin with the powdered spine of Winston Peters, perhaps.
So Grant Robertson had his first job as a paperboy at 16. Sorry, I'll skip on a little bit here.
Okay, thanks.
He has Bachelor of Arts with honours in political science.
Okay.
Political studies.
All right.
His honours dissertation studied the restructuring of the New Zealand University Students Association in the 1980s. Nicola Willis graduated first class honours degree in English Lit from Victoria, postgraduate diploma in journalism.
So she should be able to tell a story. It's not going to be on that front
you'd think
either.
so. Oh, she may have also served me at Holy Bagels in Wellington.
Hey, let's play one more clip because we're coming to the end of the show. I do want to play this last clip. I was going to skip it, but I've just looked at my notes and I've realised it's actually quite an important point in this that we need to get out to people. They started talking about
90-minute show.
There was a poll done. This is going to be 90 minutes. This clip's about 4 minutes. There was a poll done by TVNZ, and they basically asked. I remember doing this as a talkback topic. Actually, they basically asked the question. You know, are you prepared to, losing your job versus tax cuts? Like, if people have to lose their job for these tax cuts, how do you sit on that? I'm butchering the question. Let's just get to the actual pre-roll, and I'll make sure it's not on mute this time, and you can have a listen and a look for yourself. There's one very important point that I want you guys to know about this, and it's to do with the cuts that National want to see come in.
Segment, I want to talk about trade-offs, and we're going to start off with a poll question. So we asked 1,000 eligible voters, do you support or oppose lowering government spending if it means some people end up losing their jobs?
Yeah.
So 38% support, 42% oppose, 20% don't know. Now, Nicola, Labor has announced $8 billion in cuts to planned spending over the next 4 years. In addition to that, National says it'll make almost $2.5 billion in cuts to fund the tax cuts. To be clear, how many public sector jobs would National cut?
We have not set a number for that because we do not have a target for that. What we want to do is we will say to chief executives across 24 government agencies we've identified, we are concerned with how much your departmental, that's the cost of running yourselves, spending has increased, up 62% over the last few years. We think that's out of proportion to the services that are being delivered to New Zealanders. We would like you to find 6.5% worth of savings on average. Go away, have a look for that, come back to us with your recommendations. Here's the rules: protect frontline services, stop things that are wasteful, stop things that aren't delivering enough impact for everyday New Zealanders.
So it's $600 million a year in savings you want, divided by, say, just roughly salaries of $90,000 a year. I mean, that would be 6,500 redundancies at that level. Can you give us a ballpark figure as to the kind of expectation you have? Are we talking...
I do not have a ballpark figure, and the reason for that is I genuinely want to work with our public servants, to work with them to identify where the savings should be made. Here's some of the things that they will consider. Is it necessary, for example, that this year the IRD has embarked on a $30 million renovation project? Is it necessary to run lots and lots of task forces and
Lots and
working
lots.
groups?
Technical
Is
term.
it necessary to do the amount of report writing that they're doing? Are they
Because what you want in a government agency is fewer reports, you know, just like verbalise things and just try and remember them for the following week. Fewer reports is probably a good thing to do, good way to save money.
offices that are actually affordable? Are there vacancies that should not be filled? And Grant's now going to tell you.
Oh, okay.
This is the Goldilocks
Why don't you just
thing.
let me say it?
Grant can say it. Yeah.
So 6.5% needs to be cut from agencies like the Department of Conservation or Customs.
Yep.
If you cut 6.5% from the Department,
What about for departments like Ministry of Health? What about 6.5% from there? What about like education? 6.5% from there.
Department of Conservation, that will mean our conservation estate will be worse off. There is no way of cutting that much money out of a budget without it affecting the front line. Customs. If people are worried about queues at the border now, National takes 6.5% out of that. That will affect frontline services. It's simply not possible. We went in and we said 1 to 2% in those agencies because we do believe, and when times are tough and when we are trying to bring the level of government spending down, we do need to find efficiencies. But at 6.5%, that is deep cuts to agencies.
This is what I call
won't be possible to be able to deliver what Nicola says she will. And again, another reason why the tax cuts can't happen.
This is what I call the Grant Robertson Goldilocks theory, which is the amount that Grant Robertson wants to reduce from government agencies.
Is there a difference between 1 and 2% and 6%?
$4 billion over the next 4 years is perfect.
1 or 2%.
Even though he's actually targeting education and agencies, I'm not even including, that's going to be perfect and not a single
1
thing's
or
going to be
2%,
affected.
no.
But if we do
Quite a bit less than 6%.
But if we do 594 million more, then that's going to
More
be
than double.
swinging
More
cuts.
than double.
No, that's not true, Grant. So
It
you
is.
actually understand numbers. You've proposed $1 billion in cuts a year. We're proposing 594.
We proposed
That is not double.
504.
Your maths should be better than
we
that.
have provided
and actually, what this is
504 million.
about.
No, don't put misinformation out. 504 million, and you're putting 594 on top of that.
Continue, Nicola.
Well, my point is this. After years of telling us every dollar of government spending was absolutely necessary, you admitted 6 weeks before an election that actually you could afford to cut billions out, and now you're telling me that I can't find more savings without affecting frontline services. And frankly, I think that lacks credibility.
So just to take the Department of Conservation example, how will you deliver a great walk, which is National Party's policy, while simultaneously cutting DOC's budget?
Good question.
Well, there's two things we want
I've
to
got
do.
an answer for that.
The first
You
is,
just get
in
the
terms
tourist
of DOC, we will be asking them to
machete.
find savings in their backroom departmental functions. So the numbers I'm using are different from Grant's because he's looking at the entire
'Cause there's a
baseline,
debate up.
which includes their frontline services.
So what does backroom for
I'm
DOC
not.
say?
Well, that will be their policy advisors, their communications advisors, their PR
So those are
advisors,
jobs, though,
their
right?
managers.
Those are jobs.
Christ.
Well, what
We
they,
don't want to tell New Zealanders anything about the conservation estate. I presume Nicola probably means things like predator-free will be gone because
that
that
is
is
just
the
not
kind.
true, Grant. Grant stood next to me.
You cannot
Grant has
find
stood-
those kinds of
Grant has stood
savings
next to me.
without deep cuts.
And
It's just not possible.
Grant has stood next to me in debates in Wellington Central, where I've proudly talked about National's commitment to the predator-free 2050 goal, which was our goal.
You're gonna have to
So
find
this
the
is
money
just-
somewhere.
This is kind of desperate stuff.
Okay.
Because
No,
what's
it's
actually
not.
gone on
You
here...
have to explain what gets cut.
What's actually gone on here, Grant, is you have built up the public service backroom functions at a massive rate,
absolutely
out of
not.
proportion to the services you are delivering.
No,
and
it's
now
not.
you're at the 11th hour admitting you need to reduce it, but you're trying to also
Nicola,
claim...
Do you know
hang
what,
on, Grant,
Nicola? Do you know what, Nicola?
that's
We
enough.
needed those people as we went through COVID.
Okay, that's enough.
We needed to do the work to do the reforms.
Thank you.
So, very, very quickly, I'm a bit confused because government departments, does that include education? Does that include Ministry of Health? But if it doesn't, or if it does, as an example, let me show you. If it does, because they said 6.5% across all departments, if it's 6.5% across the health budget, Department of Health, that currently has an operating budget of $20.5 billion. That would be cutting $1.3 billion. That's 6.5%. That means education would be about $1 billion and Social Security would be about $2.5 billion. Now, if it's not, if it's just what they believe to be departments, DOC, the budget running for DOC is currently $710 million per annum. So 6.5, well, 10% would be 71 million. Half of that's going to be 36 million. So it's going to be, say, $40 million out of DOC. So they're going to be cutting $40 million out of DOC. I can guarantee you that what she's just described as backroom people, even if it was 100 people, 200 people that she's just described, you know, they need to find 40 billion. Let me do this super quick. Let's say it's 100 people times 100,000. That gets you to about 10 million. So that gets you to about 10 million. So that's going to be 4 times that. So that's 400 staff would be backroom. Is it going to be 400 staff, as she's just discovered, policy writers and for the Department of Conversation? I don't think so. So Grant's right. Of course, $40 million out of their budget is going to impact frontline staff. Of course, it's going to impact people who are working on the front. And if not directly, i.e. the number of people out there on the Great Walks being reduced, the people in the back room who now aren't there to service the people at the front room will be reduced. So the process of getting information and doing things is going to be slowed dramatically. Yes, exactly right, Rob.
It's this. I mean, does anything she say there about where these savings are, does that sound like a serious, well-researched policy? Or does that sound like something that's been dreamed up on the backbencher's napkin after work? Like, it doesn't sound like a serious policy. It doesn't sound researched. It doesn't seem like they've done the work. And she has been fucking gleeful about turfing people out of these jobs before Christmas. Like, as soon as possible. Gleeful.
And don't be fooled by the shell game, right? The shell game goes like this. When they want to sell something as a positive, they'll say, we're putting $800 million into this. When they know something is a negative and they don't want you to know, they'll use percentages. It's only a 3% reduction. It's only a 6.5% reduction. What, you mean 40 million people or maybe 400 staff from Department of Conservation? So that's what they do. That's what political parties do. Nationals particularly good at it. If they want to highlight money they're spending in a good way, they'll use the dollar figure. If they want to diminish the amount they're cutting, they'll use the percentage figure. Because 6.5% doesn't sound anything like $40 million or $50 million out of the Department of Conservation.
Pat, in your opinion, do you think the team at IRD that did that work on that report that said, look, here's the percentage of New Zealanders that are hiding their wealth and paying half the tax rate that everybody else is?
Yep.
Do you think they would be in a back room somewhere?
Maybe so.
Maybe they should be on a front line with fucking pitchforks to weaponize the IRD. But yeah, like this idea, like, I know what this policy is, right? It's appealing to people that think there's this massive, massive bureaucracy like we had in the 80s, right? Just people sitting in offices, flying on, career for life, you know, just shuffling the odd paper and nothing really happens. It's this perception of what government departments are like that has not been true for 40 years. But they know it plays, and they know that there's people that are going, yeah, of course, government's full of waste. And then it's going to be, you know, nothing gets approved. Your passport takes 4 weeks. There's huge lines at the airports. They're only checking every 15 containers of stock coming into the country.
Yep.
You know, biosecurity goes out the window. Like the last time that they were in the driver's seat. It's just, like, God, learn the lesson. But I think even if you were a supporter of National and you watched that debate, do you think that that's a serious finance minister in waiting? Do you think that's someone across her portfolio? Because it fucking doesn't feel like it.
But then you've also got, of course, David Seymour Winston-Peters, who might actually end up being it, which might be her out for not having to resign when the numbers don't come out.